as a fractional chief revenue officer, I talk to manufacturers all the time. I talk to other fractionals who do work with manufacturers. And what we're seeing today in the marketplace is, you know, we're waiting. We're waiting. I mean, Linda, you just talked about
Yep.
a tough economy. You said it's hard. And the finger pointing is everywhere, from the president all the way down to the guy who's sweeping the floor. Everybody is blaming for the economy. It stinks. But the reality is that the number one reason why we're not growing, whatever, is we have to point to the owners and to ourselves and to as the business owners, because we've created for ourselves a narrative that, you know, we can't export. And that is so far from the truth. And so what I'll do is talk today a little bit about, because your guys are manufacturing focused, I'm going to talk about new market expansion, but it goes beyond just manufacturers. And so I'm very happy to, folks, if you want to ask me questions during, we're only 6, 7 people, so it's not a big deal. But, if you want to wait to the end, feel free to ask me questions. If you want to ask me in the middle, no problem. But let's have fun with this, okay? I mean, we're an intimate group, so let's enjoy ourselves. What I hope for you at the end when this is all said and done, I mean, many of you already know this. Why is new market expansion essential? Absolutely. I'm going to get into that because there are things that business owners, whether we're a fractional CFO or whether we work in with those companies, there are things the owners don't realize that there's some extraordinary benefits to them and to the business. I will also go into the whole this why the strategy is required, what should be the first steps as the foundation to that, and then how a CFO or an executive, a financial executive with an organization should be working and how I work with them, but more so how they're working with the founder as well when it comes up to especially this first market expansion. Which leads into me, and I apologize for the AI generated image, but I needed something really good and where I lost a lot of weight and I look fantastic. But yes, this is an AI generated image of me. I am a fractional chief revenue officer, and what I do is I work with small to mid-sized manufacturers who have never exported before or have tried and failed. And that is all my clients. I work with businesses, whether they're in the United States, Canada, internationally, beyond. It doesn't make a difference where they're situated. I'm currently working with a South African company that wants to go to the United States. And we talked today, and I said, no, you're not. You're not able to go to the United States. And I showed her a reason why she's going to be going now to Dubai as a first market entry. A lot smaller, a lot easier for them to work with. But so I really work with them to find where's the right first market entry and then develop with them the go-to market strategy. And then I help them roll it out because they are not used to multi-market expansion. They're not used to dealing with multi-markets. That is what I do. My background, just really quickly, is I started off pretty much in the toy manufacturing business, where my geography started with Canada, and then it became the world except for the US and the UK. We didn't export, and our founder asked me, hey, just go out and have fun and sell. 40 countries, all 7 continents. I didn't do Antarctica. There are no stores in Antarctica yet. We literally opened up new markets. Now, the problem with the company was, just as a side note, is we were a $100 million company. We were significant profit. We were bought out by a PE firm, and we were bankrupt in 20 months. Folks, if you want to know the stories, you'll have to buy me a few beers to get through that story because it's a lot of stories behind it. I've worked in manufacturing, advertising, the technology. One of the things that I enjoyed telling people is that in the middle of my career, I stopped and went back to school to get an MBA, which then led me to become a lecturer at McGill University to MBA students and Masters of Retail Management, where I literally teach them strategic revenue growth. There are no sales courses in most universities. There were none in Canada when I built this program 10 years ago. And I imagine like teaching future business leaders everything to do with business, but not how to grow their revenues. That's what I teach right now. And it's been, I'll be glad to say it's the last 9 years, and I've been teaching students both locally and internationally. All right. I have a poll to ask you, and I know we're a small group, and so this will be really kind of easy. But if you don't mind, can you please tell me how many of you have had experience in entering a new international market? And my guess is it's probably all of you. But if you don't mind saying yes or no in the chat, please. Chris, I have a feeling with the small group we're going to have today, this is going to be shorter than the time we have allotted. So I might be able to give people back some time. So, yeah, clearly you've all had an opportunity, pardon me, or most of you have had an opportunity to experience. I know, Kevin, you have. I mean, that I've had this conversation with you, but yeah, this is entering the new market. But let me ask you this question. In the businesses that you've been dealing with here in a second poll, and I promise you there's one more after this, but not a little bit later, what do you think is holding people back from expanding into a new market? Give me a couple of words in your opinion. Why do you think manufacturers are holding off on exporting?
They don't know
Again,
how to get there.
they don't know how to get there. What else? Fear of the unknown, Linda. Absolutely. What else, folks? You can put it in the chat. You can say it out loud, whatever you want. Cost? Absolutely. That investment. Fear? Absolutely. Trust? Great word. Absolutely. So, what we're seeing today very often is that if you are a big fan of watching the news, whether I don't care if you're CNN, MSNBC, no, they're called MS Now. I'm sorry, they just got rebranded this week. If you're a Fox Business, I don't care what you watch or listen to, you're probably petrified because of one word: tariffs. Scares the crap out of people. They're telling people, oh, you can't export because of tariffs. Could be furthest from the truth. There are other common misbeliefs, almost like a unicorn mindset here. You know, if you believe in unicorns, you're believing all this. Oh, if we export, we're going to ruin our core market. Oh, you can only export if there's a demand. I got to be super perfect before we export. I can't deal with the regulations. Or the best is, I don't speak the language, so I can't go into that market. And as an English speaker, I could tell you right now, the last study I saw, 60 different countries conduct business in English. And yet, oh, lo and behold, we just believe that language is the big barrier. That's not the question they should be asking themselves. The things they should be thinking about is what happens if our home market is not going to work out. What if we have a problem? So I had a conversation earlier yesterday with a gentleman who does business with Brazilians, and there he said, huh, now with the fact that the United States has put a 50% tariff, his entire business model is destroyed, and all of his Brazilian clients are in trouble because they were relying on one market. For them, the US was their home market, and now they're in pain. Your competition is eating your pants, shorts. How much are you leaving on the table? You know, what would happen if tomorrow morning your biggest customer said bye bye, was bought out, went bankrupt, merged, and now you lost it? What would you do? This is what we need to help as financial people. We need to help our business owners to understand that we need to really think of new market. Now, the crazy thing is they will tell you, as a small to mid-sized business, I can't. I'm too small. Again, another fiction. 98% of all US exporters were SMBs. Officially, we're talking of $1.8 trillion in exports. And if 98% of it came from SMBs, think of that dollar amount. The kicker is only 1 in 4 of the identified exporters were actually manufacturers. The rest were wholesalers and classified as others. So an SMB saying I can't is the furthest from the truth. But what business owners don't realize is, what are they leaving on the table? What's the opportunity out there for them? Well, let's start from the beginning. New sales, of course. You're going to go into a new market, you're going to generate new sales. But let's talk about the type of customer you can actually get your hands on. If you go into the right market, they could be better customers. We're all financial people, right? So what are we looking for? We're looking for people who pay better, bigger, might buy more volume. Think of that kind of customer. What impact would that have on the business? Now, all of a sudden, I have 20 big significant clients in market A, 20 significant clients in market B. I've diversified my risk now. So if I lose my biggest client in market A, I got market B. And like I said before, if there's an economic problem in market B, I got market A. I have balanced out my risk and made things a lot easier. So the bottom line of that for the business is huge. Yeah, there's a competitive advantage. Yes, my brand gets better. But you folks, you understand about the idea of economies of scale. You can explain it better than I can. Imagine if you can increase your production, make it more efficient. You're bringing down your unit costs. All these opportunities are there if we look at new market, because at a certain point, our current market won't be enough. And finally, we can get our hands on talent, resources, but innovation. What ideas can I bring from market B to market A and vice versa? Now I've got such a power in my hands. That is the massive impact on the existing business. But we're here to help our founders, our business owners. And reality is they've started this business for one reason and one reason only, right? Money. They want to make more money. They didn't do this for a paycheck. I don't know how many business owners went out and decided, okay, yeah, I want to be a paycheck. That's go own a franchise. But if I start a manufacturing business to grow to scale, I did it for a reason. And so if I'm a 30, 35, 40-year-old, which we all are, right? We're all in that age group. We're looking at financial freedom. I have spoken to founders and I've asked them, why do you want to grow? Well, I want to play more golf or pickleball. Sure. Better vacations, cars, cottages, better finance, better investments for the future. That's there. There's that opportunity. Some have talked to me about leaving a legacy for the next generation. They started the business from zero, they grew it, and they wanted to pass it on to the children. The toy company I was in was owned by a family. They started it from nothing. They had gone bankrupt twice before they took off with the toy company. The goal was to hand it to the next generation. Well, what they didn't realize is that they made the company so attractive by being in so many markets, they were bought out twice, by the way. The second time was the PE. The first time, and the multiple given was ridiculous because they were in multiple markets, which led then to the conversation about retirement. I'm 55. I'm happy to say, thank you. I'm looking at my retirement at some point. If I'm an owner at 55, I know I'm not going to work forever. Could you imagine a better life, a better retirement plan? Folks, if you're like in Canada, you can't depend on the government for your retirement. You need to have your own investments out ready. What a great way to do it. By increasing, accelerating the growth will lead you to a better retirement plan. Founders don't realize that this is on the table for the business and for themselves because they're still stuck in the day to day. As financial people, we need to help them to understand that I do that from a revenue side. You guys from a financial side are hugely critical. Now, my final poll of the day. Can you please describe, not you personally, can you answer me, your clients, your best client, your current client, your who you're working for? Would you describe them as a tortoise or a hare? Put that in the chat, please. Just curious. A
What's the
T or an A
difference?
doesn't make a difference. Sorry?
What's the difference?
Ah, good question. The tortoise. It's the old, the old tortoise is the slow and steady, wins the race, and the hare runs and accelerates and makes fun. Which one are they? The slow and steady or the accelerator, the one who rushes? The tortoise, Kevin put in there. All right. Oh, we got a bunch of tortoises. So what we've seen is that if you're a founder and you fall into, or a business owner and you fall into one of these buckets, you will find growth and expansion a disaster. You can't be one of these. You have to be, I know there doesn't exist a hybrid, but you need to be a bit of both because too slow will kill you and too fast will kill you. So if you're a tortoise, right now, what you see today is all you see are roadblocks, problems. Oh my God, it's too complex. Oh my God, we can't. And I go back to those tariffs. Fear, and we talked, you guys said it earlier, one of the biggest hold-offs for a tortoise type of owner is fear. They're waiting for the bluer skies. They're waiting for all of the clouds to clear. They're waiting for a perfect opportunity. May I ask you, in the last 10 years, can you name 1 year in the last 10 years when there wasn't a major disaster that impacted business? You can't. Because every year we've had a major disaster, whether it's a pandemic, tariffs, economic crisis, bankrupt bank failures. I mean, we can go back to 2008. Every year there's been a major economic disaster, major impact in the world. We have wars right now that are freaking people out. When's the perfect time? This is the tortoise. The hare, on the other hand, rushes. Tell me if this doesn't sound familiar. They go to a trade show. They meet somebody, promises them, hey, I could take you to this market, leave it with me, everything's going to be wonderful. And you hand them the keys and you say, go. No strategy, no research, there's misalignment, there's there's all these problems because we rushed, because we thought, hey, we can get a hit, we can get a run, we can get a sale. This is very, very common. And I have a lot of business owners come to me and say, yeah, we tried it with a distributor. It didn't work. And when I dig and I ask, well, why not? What you find out is they never did their homework. They didn't really check into it. And it was a failure. And it hurt the company. And in one case that I met, it actually bankrupted the company. So what we need to share with our business owners and what our as advisors is, why is it essential? Why do we need a go-to-market strategy? Because it's like a business plan. It's not a business plan, obviously, but it's like one. And we need to remind some of our founders, you remember when you started the business? You wrote this out, or maybe you typed it out, and you did your homework of where you wanted to go, how you wanted to do it, why you wanted to do it. You put a budget, you had your internal team put together, you put all of this in place because you went to the bank and said, I need a loan so I can buy machines, so I can do this, so I can do that. New market strategy is the same principle. You don't have to write the full-blown business plan, but you need a strategy. You need to treat it like a business plan, which means we need to start with researching. Where are we going to go? We need the right first market to get started. We need to know where we're going to go. We need to really research this, because is there a demand in that market? Do we have the right pricing? Do we have the right market fit? We need to research it. This is a step skipped by most business owners I talk to. They think this is costly and unnecessary. It's essential. You can't go into a new market without research. I'll get into that in a minute. You need to find the right customers. Do you have the right profile, the right fit? Again, I'll elaborate in a little bit. You need to make sure that you're talking to the right people the right customer base. Because remember, you're going to go into that manufacturer's going into a new market. They have a supplier or a partner already. You're about to dethrone an incumbent. Does that market have the right customers for you? Remember, I said before, one of the opportunities is to find better customers than what you're currently doing. You at least don't want worse than what you're currently doing. So do you have the right customers with that in that market, which then leads to finding the right local people? Because you need to understand, if you're going to go into that new market, what's at stake? What do you got here? So cultural differences, market behaviors, associations, partners, allies, influence. Who are the people? It's almost like, who are the people in your neighborhood, right? I think that was a Sesame Street jingle. You know, who are the people in this area that you really need to connect with? This is the opportunity that's out there. You need that. Because what the strategy will lead to is, now, how are we going to get in? And a lot of times business owners are saying, okay, we just need a salesperson or a distributor. We're going to go on a greenfield or organically or through a distributor. Those are the two simplest and easiest. And everybody says, yeah, we could do that. That's not a problem. But why is that the only two options? What if we did a joint venture? What if we found a local company that we can work with where maybe some of the manufacturing can be done locally and we could ship? Maybe we can find a partner in that market who can do more than just warehouse. Or maybe we have to acquire somebody. And these last two are almost never on the table. But the research might show that this two might be the best way to enter into that market. It's aggressive, yes, but maybe the best option because of what's the opportunity. So now that I've talked a little bit about the essential strategy, why they need to build this out, I need to take a big step back because there are three things that need to get done before they really, really develop a full-blown strategy. And the first thing is to make sure that they have the right foundation in place. I have a client in Mexico that I asked them the question. They're in the promotional goods business. They make lovely calendars, agendas, and diaries, very personalized, beautiful stuff. And I asked them, what problem do you solve for your clients? The two owners, there were three owners, but two of the three, they got into an argument. What problem were they solving? The CEO said one thing, the head of sales said another thing. The guy in finance kind of scratched his head, goes, I don't know. We figured out at the end the problem that they were solving for their clients by doing these things. And it looked something like, just so you know, I'm looking at something like this. Sorry, let's see with the count. All right. You don't see it. Simply put, their clients want to enhance their relationship with stakeholders. And they need something like that. And that helps with that relationship. That's the problem they solve. What makes them unique? Another argument. What makes them unique? What is their secret sauce? And what we discovered, they kept saying price. Price is not what makes you unique. That's a terrible thing. What made them unique compared to others was their ability to hyper personalize these things that other suppliers wouldn't do for the quantities that they're willing to ship. That's their uniqueness. So we went to their clients and we asked the same questions. And thankfully, they validated that those were the answers. But I can't tell you how many customers I went to and I said, okay, your head of sales, your operations, your customer, everybody's in the room. Question one and two, are you guys aligned? They're not. And then the best part is we went to go visit some customers together and the answers were different. The client said, no, you solve a different problem for me. Oh, and why I like to buy from you is because and it was something completely different. If you can get these two questions solved, now you know how to take this to another market. Now you can find a market that says, oh, which market I can solve this market with this uniqueness. Because that will distinguish yourself in a second market. Now we need to discuss the customer, the company profile. If you want to have a fun argument, and I think all of you in finance have been there, take your head of sales and yourself and say, who is the best customer? Describe your best company customer profile. I guarantee you won't say the same thing because sales will look at it from convenience, the easiest one to sell, and you're looking at it from a profitability, who pays the best, who will buy the most volume. You got to get aligned. Who are we trying to target? And we want to find that person and that decision maker in market B. And can I support all of the above? If these five cannot be answered, you can't export because all you'll do is fight a price war and you can't win. Someone else is going to beat you. So any manufacturer that is looking to export really needs to take this super seriously. And when a founder says, I don't have time, share with them the story of Jeff Immelt, formerly of GE, who went to go visit his top customers and asked these questions. If he can do it, you got to do it. As a founder, that is critical. I've gone with the founders on during these conversations, but I'll tell you, it is a founder that has to do it. Then we want insight. We need to know who the competition is. Now, if you're fortunate enough to have a client in market A that's also in market B, they'll give you information. They will help you. They're the who they are, how are they positioned, what pricing, what packaging are they doing, what kind of packages are they putting together. You need to know who the competition is. You can't. I can't tell you how many times I've heard, yeah, we went into a market, we tried to sell, we didn't know that. You gotta be kidding me. What is the cost of that move? It's expensive to your reputation and it's expensive. And all of a sudden now you're giving price away to people that you were supposed to make more money from. You got to have that insight. That's where the local people can help you. Asking them who are, going to networking groups, going into associations, going into those industry leaders and asking them who is the right, who are the competition, who are the top three? Not everybody. Let's get the top three. The external factors. The crazy thing here is that when I think of what is out there. Now, there's an acronym called PESTEL. I'm not sure if you're familiar with this acronym. It stands for political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal. These are things you can't touch, but boy, do they make a difference. And all this information, by the way, is available online. So, and if anybody says to you, "Oh, I didn't know," that's bunk. You could have looked for it online. I have a client who told me he sells into Africa. I said, "Are you kidding me?" He goes, "Yeah, the only thing we got to worry about is a coup." A revolution. I mean, that's all we got to worry about. It's not such a big deal. Canada is one of the members of the G7. It's one of the seven top economies in the world for now. And people don't even realize it. And we have a certain economic growth that people don't even realize. They should know and learn. But we trust the news to tell us where to go. I have a client I'm sorry, he's a prospect. He's in Dubai. He sells single-use plastic products. And he wanted to sell it in the United States. I said, well, you can't. Not everybody's going to take them. We can almost take a pen and like do like, line along the northern part, California and across the north. You can't sell there anymore. The law prohibits you. It's environmental law now. You can't do single package. And then the legal, like the employment. I mean, let's be honest between us. In the United States, we're not very happy to give away vacations. Have you been to France? How many weeks of vacation by law everybody gets? 5. 3 weeks in the summer, and then another 2 weeks. Could you imagine that you tried to call somebody after Bastille Day, around July 16th, July 20th, you try to call them and no one is answering the phone? Welcome to France. No one's around till the second week of August. That's the law. You got to know these things beforehand. And that is so critical as we go into those new markets. So, as financial leaders, this is what I do, and I work with them, and I tell them, listen, I really could use your help, and this is where you guys, I'm sure you have this experience. This is where you have major impact. First and foremost, we need to help the founder or the business leader with risk. If they're a tortoise, we got to help them go a little faster. If they're a hare, we got to get them to slow down a little bit. And really, it's about their appetite. Big eyes, little stomach, or big stomach, little eyes. I'm not sure what it is that they have, but we need to help them not just with qualitative information, but also the financials and to show them that this is what we got to do. This is how we got to be. We got to look at pricing, and I can tell you a suggested pricing, but you know the margins. You know the margins if we have to include tariffs or duties or other costs. We also have to discuss other things. I have a client who is absolutely stubborn, only wants to do pricing FOB shipping point. The clients want FOB landing point. He won't give it. We're losing sales. We got to build out these models to see if it makes a lot of sense. Foreign exchange currency, the currency volatility, I'm not saying Mexico. where who knows what the market is, or Colombia even worse, where the pricing, where the foreign exchange goes crazy. But ladies and gentlemen, at the beginning of this year, when Donald Trump announced his tariff thing, the Canadian dollar was worth 68 cents US. Today it's 73 or 74 cents US. So what price points should we be giving? How often should we be changing our price lists? Should we be looking at a 30-day price list, 60-day? I got customers who don't want to do more than 90-day pricing because of that. That's what we got to work together. We got to look at also what would be the impact of the business, the financial impact. How long is there a cash burn until we get to a certain point level? So how much money do you need to bring into the company before you do the expansion? Do you need to buy more equipment? I hope not, but the investment in inventory might lead to something. We need to do that together. Sorry, was there a question? Okay. Then, of course, there are government grants, government programs that are there are some opportunities. The United States, unfortunately, what I've seen is a little tight at times on these things. But when you go into other markets, for example, if you were to set up shop in Canada, the Canadian government and the provinces throw money at you like you can't believe for employment, for opening up a facility, opening up a location. Unbelievable. We got to find those. In Europe, they're also doing the same thing in a lot of cases. Another thing we need to discuss also is, what do we do about payment? Some people are strictly an LC, fine, gotcha. But some businesses want to pay net 90 days. What controls do we put into place? Again, that's a conversation we're going to have as we prepare the go-to-market strategy. The final thing is we got to talk about the financial point in which we might have to pivot or exit. Because when I work with these businesses, I tell them straight up, here's your wish list of 10 countries. We narrow it to about 3 that are the real deal, and we give you 1 that we're going to go into. But we got to be prepared for 2 and 3 just in case. Because if we have another situation where your president decides, hey, I don't like my deals, let's start all over again. Or we know that next year the Canada USMCA, the USMCA agreement is about to be renegotiated, and we have to pivot. I can tell you the qualitative time, and more often than not, the sales time. You might have to tell when is it a financial time before you might have to pivot. This is how we help our businesses in terms of exporting. This is how we're going to mitigate the risk for our founders and for our owners. So here's where I begin, and here's where we can begin together. And that's a little bit of looking at the team and deciding, do we have the right team internally to get us to that next level? Do we have the right individuals in operations, finance, HR, sales, customer service with the mindset for growth? Are they prepared and ready for the volatility that's about to hit potentially for a multi-market business? The people you might have hired might have been the best for what they do today. Tomorrow could be a different thing. People are a major important part of it. And sometimes you as financial leaders have to whisper in the business leader's ear or the business owner's ear, yeah, we might have to change something. We might have to consider a change. I talked about investment in research. I don't have to repeat that again, but really, we want that money to be set aside for an investment in research. Because to spend $5,000 or $10,000 on research is better than losing $100,000 because of an oops. I can't tell you how many times I've told that to people, and they said, no, we're just going to wing it. And then they call me and say, okay, we lost too much. Let's go do the research. We also need a timeline. We need a roadmap, because if we're dealing with the tortoise or the hare type of business owner, they need to see the timeline. We need to see a roadmap of what it is that we're going to do. This is what I prepare, but you are very instrumental in that preparation as well. Local expertise we talked about, we need that. And then finally, the one thing that I really tell people in terms of evaluating if you can handle multiple markets is maybe try a smaller market. Canadians are really funny. because we're your neighbors to the north. We're the ones who dump snow on you. We're the ones who are, bring you the cold. We're blamed for, the Arctic weather. But you're our favorite trade partner, despite your president. We love you. You're 9 times bigger than us, and you are our closest neighbor. We have nobody else. So we want to go to the US. But to go from our market to your market is massive. It's a massive, massive move. What I advise my clients is don't go to the US, go to New York. Start small, then build. You're not one country, you're like 50 countries in one. So it's the same thing for the US. Don't go to Europe. Don't go to the European Union. Start with Puerto Rico, maybe. In Texas, it's interesting how many companies in Texas actually export because you're right at the border. Great. Go to a small market. Test it out. Try it out before going big and aggressive. That's the key for me. Start small. Let the company learn, especially the smaller they are. Let them learn so that there's an easy adaptation, minimizing the risk. Now, I've spent the last 40 odd minutes talking about international market expansion. And yeah, this is what you really should be doing. But I'm going to refine the word new market by including another state or even another city. Now, if businesses were to take what I just said a little lighter, but with the same seriousness, when they want to go from Texas to Texas and they say, hey, I'm in Texas, where should we go to next? Hey, California sounds good. They're big. Let's go. Oh my God. You want to talk about the difference between California and Texas? I mean, do we need to really go there, folks? Should we be really talking about the differences of buyers, laws, you name it? But we jump because it's bigger, it's better. We think that it's the right market. But if you took the time, you might discover that if you're in Texas, you might want to go to Oklahoma, Alabama, or you want to go to Kevin's place in Arkansas. I don't know. But why do you want to go to California? I know companies in Florida who are talking about, yeah, our next move is to Washington State. Why? Why? Well, I have an opportunity there. If you take what I just presented and you apply it in the same way to to a state or a province or a territory, you'll benefit, you'll discover the opportunities. Ideally, I would love for them to do it for a city too. But I think it's hard for people to understand that you should invest in discovering that. But it's the same principle. Even in this, I'll use Texas only because Chris is there. You know, if you're in Dallas and if you have to choose between San Antonio and Houston, how are you going to make the choice? Same conversation, same application, just on a smaller scale. So new market growth doesn't matter the size. It's the philosophy of we research, we do our homework, we find the right people, we find the right market, we prepare the right market entry, and we execute. That's pretty much it.